After you've finished creating your stamp head, you're then going to draw out your initials and transfer them onto the clay. So I have my sketchbook here and a pencil to start with, and when we create the letters that will go on our stamp, we want to make sure that they're going to fit on the stamp head. So what I'm going to do is take my stamp head and just kind of lightly trace around it. Just so I know that my letters are going to fit within that area. Okay, so now I've got these boxes here. Got a little bit of clay on my pencil. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out a few different fonts or styles of lettering with pencil. Okay, so I have a few different fonts here. Then choose which one you think you would like to use. And what you'll do is take a washable marker, Crayola, a dark color. You can use black or purple or brown would work. Just stay away from the lighter colors like yellow. And what you're going to do is trace over your letters, and I'm going to make the letters thicker too. Because otherwise, when I carve around the letters, it might be difficult if the letters are really skinny. So that would be thick enough, if you can kind of estimate compared to my finger how thick those letters are. Then what I'm going to do is transfer the lettering onto the flat level stamp head. So you cut this with an X-Acto knife so it was completely flat and level, and you smoothed it out. So now what I'm going to do is just line up my stamp head with the letters and just kind of press and rock back and forth. And you can see that the letters have transferred onto the stamp head. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is begin carving. And because my clay has dried up a little bit, it feels a little stiffer. It's not as moldable as it was yesterday. And when it's in this state, it's called leather hard, and it's perfect for carving. So what we're doing is we're going to be carving away around the letters so that the letters stick up like on this stamp. To do this, you can use a number of tools. You can use an X-Acto knife, which is very precise. You can use, this tool is called a loop tool. I also have some skinnier loop tools for small areas. You can use something that's called a wood sculpture knife. And looking at these two wooden sculpture knives, I would probably use the smaller wooden sculpture knife because I feel like I could be more precise with it rather than this large tool, which might be a little bit clunky and hard to use. And then I also have a coil pot of various tiny tools. So some of these are dental tools, some are specifically for clay working. So I have all kinds of tools that you can use depending on what you're doing and how small of an area you're working with. So I'm going to actually start with this tool. The only tool that you don't want to use is called a pin tool. I'm going to pull that out so you can see it. It looks like this. It looks like a needle on the end, and it's a skinny metal tool. This is not great for carving, so stay away from this tool if you find it. It's not great for this activity. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is start to carve away. And this might be a little bit difficult to do because the stamp is so large. So first I'm going to cut it down a little bit more so that I can hold it upright. So it's just a couple inches long. And then what I'm going to do is take this little scoop tool and place it on its side and begin to scrape away the clay around the letters. And we should be shaving off the clay slowly so that we're not taking too much at one time, and that as we take it away, the clay behind the letters is all on the same level. For the wooden sculpture knife, I would use it like this, just kind of pulling away. X-Acto knives are great too because they can scrape and get around really skinny areas. You might even make cuts like this around the letter. Then I kind of peel up the clay. So this is a little bit tricky. So make sure that you work slowly so that you're not taking too much off. If you're having a really hard time, then maybe switch your tool. Or you can ask me for a tool, or I can help you. Again, if you make cuts and then you just kind of pry the clay up. And again, if the clay is too soft, it will be extremely hard to carve. So you want to make sure that your clay is in the perfect state of being leather hard. So I'm going around the letters right now, and soon I'll need to get between the parts of the letter. So like in between the S here and here, the little window and the A. And I have some other really small tools that will work great for that. However, right now I'm just going to focus on going around the letters. And again, if we turn it sideways, we want to make sure that the letters pop out enough so that when you press your stamp into a piece of clay, it will show up well. I can tell right now that this side right here is not quite level. Curvy letters are difficult. So you can see how I'm holding the knife. I'm almost holding it like a pencil. I've got a lot of control of the head of the X-Acto knife. And I'm just kind of scraping them away. So sometimes I'm making cuts. And sometimes I'm prying up. And sometimes I'm scraping away. You just don't want to scrape away from the very top of the letters because then they won't print properly into the clay. And you need a little scoop tool for this part. To go around the S. And at some point you might think, okay, well I'm getting this, but my clay doesn't look as smooth as it could be, so what do I do with that? So to smooth the clay, we want to smooth it really lightly. We don't want to put a lot of pressure on it, so we change the shape of the letters, or we make the letters not flat anymore. So what you can do is take a paintbrush. I'm going to go grab a paintbrush. So I have a paintbrush. These brushes are meant for glazing, but they work great for smoothing too. And I'm going to just lightly spritz my clay, and then I'm going to take the paintbrush and just very lightly smooth the areas and smooth around. So you don't want to press too hard because again you can disfigure the letters. And we do have to look up close to the stamp. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and really look at the side too. That's probably the most difficult part, is getting the side to be smooth, because sometimes it's hard to take off clay smoothly without chopping too much off. Okay, so you can see how much I've carved away. I still want my letters to stick out a little bit more, so I'm going to carve this down some. And then the middle is where I really need to slow down and get some really tiny tools to carve out. So that's why I told you to make your stamps at least a certain size so that you don't make it too difficult for yourself to get inside of there. Sometimes the clay likes to build up on the surface. You can just kind of scrape it away like that. Lift the clay out of there. It's kind of like surgery. Okay, so I'm going to continue carving until I get my letters popping out a little bit more and I get it all cleaned up and I have all the holes completed.